What is one of the few glimpses of reality you remember from when you were under age of 4? Lots of snow and very bad furniture design. I remember going to the cinemas to watch Mr. Bean's Holiday. I remember the train station scenes. Years later, I looked it up. It came out in 2007. I was born at 2004. Yeah. So I was 3 at the time. Hiding under my bed from my dad. He was drunk and aggressively trying to give me my antibiotic. I remember being underwater for what felt like a significant amount of time and seeing a hand come towards me and pulling me by my hair. Near-drowning experience that apparently no one in my family will elaborate about, but it has been confirmed. Visiting my great-grandparents. They lived on a farm with geese. The geese were loud and scary. 5 But I distinctly remember on the first day of kindergarten they served chocolate pudding. Edit. As a side, golf clubs aren't to be swung at my younger brother. I'm not allowed to access those memories often because they are too traumatic. Eating rice with sugar because that's all we can afford. One of my very earliest memories is a dream I had where my sister bought a Halloween prop rubber finger to scare me with. I became absolutely convinced that at any moment it would come to life, crawl across the house, and touch me, which I was desperately terrified of for some reason. It wasn't even trying to harm me, I just didn't want to touch it. It never came to life, and never moved from the weirdly elaborate box she had put it in. My dead grandpa and, I think, great aunt holding me. I was like 2 to 3 and my great aunt died around 2 years later, and it's the only memory I have of her. My granda died a few years ago but didn't know him that well. I think it was some sort of meeting where they got to meet me for the first time. A couple others were there as well, and I vividly remember them talking about how cute and small I was, and I just kinda knew what they were talking about, and I don't remember anything else. The day I turned 4, I remember running down our staircase. My min was walking by and saw me. And so I shouted, "I'm 4." Quote. Another time. No clue how old I was. We were having pizza. I bit into it. And it burned really badly. It was the pepperoni. But I was watching everyone else and saw that they weren't in pain. And that it was my hell and my hell alone. So I just started drinking all the water I could find. My grandmother's 50th birthday party. I was 2.5. There were lots of people in the garden and a long buffet table with different kinds of food. At one end of the table was a big glass bowl filled with olives. And I could just reach over the edge and into the bowl. So I stood there happily eating olives. I was an unusual child. And now and then some grown-up would pat me on the head. I tell people this is my earliest memory. But it actually isn't true. My actual earliest memory is from some time before that. I woke up alone in the car. I remember believing I'd been abandoned and crying hysterically. Then my dad came back. He'd only popped into a shop for a few minutes. But I hadn't understood that. I'd thought he'd left me forever. When I woke up alone, my brain just couldn't comprehend that he'd probably be back soon. But I was so young I couldn't explain what I was feeling because I couldn't talk properly yet. So I just cried. When we got home and my dad told my mum why I was crying so much, she was really angry with him. I remember watching Lion King at the cinema circa '94. I was 4 years old. I also still to this day quite vividly remember my first day of kindergarten. The shock of second language immersion. The meeting of the group that I would stay with for the next 9 years. Or until I switched school. Think only English school in a French community. Very few students. K-12 in one building. I remember meeting the guy who would become my first bully the very next day. Turns out I remember a lot from back then. Not wanting to leave my mother to go to playschool. I remember screaming, crying the whole time I was there, and the teacher then putting me in the bathroom alone. Then I remember lying down in the backseat of the car after being picked up and just feeling totally exhausted from the experience. Our house was under construction when I was little. I remember being out playing in the yard and seeing my dad pull up with the car and trailer loaded with the floorboards for the new part of the house. I've talked to my dad and we can pinpoint the time very well. I was 2.5 at the time. It also checks out with the car I remember. We sold that car shortly thereafter. I also remember climbing upstairs to the unfinished second floor. It must have been around the same time. I was not supposed to go up there. It was dark and there was an uncovered light bulb hanging there. Something moved in the wind. And I thought it was a ghost. I ran down and fell in the stairs. Since I wasn't allowed to go upstairs, I didn't dare to tell anyone. I remember my dress and carrying a bouquet of daisies at my grandfather's funeral. I don't remember him or anything else from the funeral. Only the dress and the flowers. He died when I was 2.5.